My name's Gail Smith. I've been principal of Rosebery Primary School since 2012. We have a student population ranging between 450 to 480 students. We have a transient population due to our defence families we have here, around 20%, and also service workers and gas plant business, which is happening here at the moment. We have a number of our staff who are wives to defence families, so our staff is rather transient as well. When I first started at Rosebery Primary School, the school was 12 months old. There was a well-established foundation for the way forward with the school, and they were called the Big Four, made up of cooperative learning, co-teaching, restorative practices and evidence-based programming. We soon realised that the school needed to establish their values, which needed to underpin everything. So we did some work around that, decided that evidence-based underpinned everything. So we made that overarching, and we included a visible learning approach as our Big Four. So today we have visible learning, co-teaching, cooperative learning and restorative practices as our Big Four. The values underpin everything that we do, and we had to work hard with consultation around that, with families, with students and with staff. And those values link closely to the general capabilities in the Australian curriculum, in fact. So that's worked really well for us. So part of our structure of our school is co-teaching. Co-teaching is about working together and learning together. Our children have cooperative learning strategies that they use in their class, and our teachers do too. For us to work with the Australian curriculum, it's really important that we do that. So we have specific planning times where teachers work together, and we have professional learning time where they work together.
So my name's Shona Henderson. I am the assistant principal here at Rosebery Primary School. As far as our timetabling goes, we make sure that our co-teaching partners have at least 2 hours of their 3 hours off together every week so that they can program together. That's quite a complex process. It's not easy, but we do manage to do that, guaranteed, and we couldn't have a co-teaching approach in our school without having that structure firmly in place. So while the teachers are not in the classroom, we either have our performing arts teacher take care of the children or our PE teacher.
Now, we're going to have some think time, what it would look like on your clock to make 2 o'clock. Think about our success criteria. Where would the big hand be? Where would the small hand be?
I'm Kimberly Walker, and I have a Year 1 class here at Rosebery. My co-teacher and I, we plan together with the Australian curriculum for mathematics by starting with the achievement standard. We then look at the content descriptors and we make a yearly overview based on those content descriptors. And we use a range of formative assessment approaches and strategies that work out where the kids are at, engage their understanding, and that helps us create learning sequences for the near future. Every Friday, our colleague and I have 2 hours together, and we use that time to co-plan for the week ahead or the fortnight ahead. And we're continually going back, looking at the Australian curriculum and the framework and our yearly overview that we've created from that to ensure that we're on track with the semester, to make sure that we're going to have everything covered that we need to have covered for the reporting semester.
The Australian curriculum was being introduced to the Territory when I arrived in 2012. So here at Rosebery we had to develop a model that was going to be sustainable for us. We were working between 2 documents still, the Northern Territory Curriculum Framework and the Australian curriculum. So we decided that we would develop some teams around that, so curriculum teams I guess, around English, maths and science. Then history was added later on. In doing that, though, they worked in a professional learning community capacity, and we continued to have those meetings for as long as they were needed.
So at the beginning we started with students coming from 38 different schools with no data for us to start in our classrooms. So one of the ways that we compensated for that was that we decided that we would concentrate on reading in our first couple of years. And then from there we decided that we would start with a data wall, and we used First Steps Reading as one of our main resources. So that is really about explicitly teaching students how to read across the continuum depending on where they are in the phases. And in addition to that, we also used PM benchmarking so that we had two good areas that we could put together to find out where all our children were as far as reading goes. And then we put it on the data wall so that anyone could come into this room and have a really good snapshot of where all our children are, where they should be according to our targets, and what we're going to do about it if they're not in the right spot, and if they are indeed ahead of where they should be, what are we going to do about that? And so then together as a whole staff we have ownership over that, and ownership of where the kids are at, not just the kids in our classroom. So we have short-term and long-term planning. We start with the long-term planning by looking at the achievement standards and the content descriptors for the students in each particular year level and where they should be. Then we follow through with some diagnostic testing, and then we figure out where the students exactly are sitting in that classroom. And by looking at a combination of the diagnostic testing and the content descriptors, there's shorter term planning as to how we're going to move those students to the desired position that we want them to get to.
My name's Karen Jeffrey. I'm the senior teacher of the early years at Rosebery Primary School. I have a passion for play-based learning, and I successfully integrate the Australian curriculum and play-based into my daily program. The challenge to me was when the Australian curriculum first came in, everybody said, oh, you can't do play-based learning, you have to follow the content, you won't be able to integrate it. It's something that it works really well, and during that investigation time it makes it child-centred, but I'm also able to bring in all the learning areas from the Australian curriculum. Investigations allows me to cater to the needs of different children as their learning's at their own pace, and I'm able to individualise activities and expectations to suit the needs of all the children in my class. So investigations are planned fortnightly, and when I'm doing that planning I'm always reflecting back on my yearly overview with the general capabilities, and that comes through in our learning intentions and our success criteria, helping those children become problem solvers and independent learners.
My name's Robert Dunbar. I've been at Rosebery for 2 years. I'm the PE specialist. We have various curriculum committees. I'm the leader of the Health and Physical Education Curriculum Committee. We began by looking at the rationale and the overview, and we discovered that the curriculum was not anything different from what we've been teaching. The content descriptors allow you to check that you're complying with the Australian curriculum, and they give you guidance without giving you too much constraint on what you do. The achievement standards give you some guidance, and they can be used as a benchmark, but you still have room to generate your own curriculum interpretation within those.
So another way for us to encourage teachers to engage with the Australian curriculum was for us to begin a moderation process in our school. That involved teachers looking at the student samples on the Australian curriculum site, and then from there developing their own tasks and rubrics around the curriculum according to their year level, and getting together as a whole school group to moderate those pieces of work. Every teacher came to a moderation meeting with 3 samples from 3 different children in their class, and we aimed for, high, medium and low. And then as a whole group we had a very rigorous process where teachers teamed up with another teacher from a different year level. So again, another way to really engage with the curriculum and get to know the whole, from transition or preschool right through to year 6. So we teamed up, early and primary together, and then that pair would go around and look at each child's set of 3 tasks and rubrics, and as a partnership decided where they think that student sat as far as A to E goes. And of course that's just a snapshot decision according to 3 pieces at that time, and that makes, helps towards making a grade towards the end of the year in amongst all the other testing that we do.
Part of our school context is that all of the leadership team have been trained in coaching, and that's been a really bonus for us because they then now know how to work with teams across doing that. It's really important that that happens because you need to be able to individually work with people as well as working in small groups as well as in bigger teams. So we've been able to make a sustainable model out of that, and we have a coaching model within our school that we actually work on constantly with our leadership team.
One of our successful strategies for professional learning is that we have structured our professional learning community meetings around the Dylan William format. And within that format, it's a very predictable structure so that teachers know what to expect when they come to the meeting, and it's an action learning sequence. So that allows for individual accountability and encourages everybody to contribute. So having been a curriculum leader in the Australian curriculum for the past 4 years, my advice for any new school taking on the Australian curriculum is that you have to remember it takes time if you want it to be sustainable and embedded within your school, and it needs to be purposely planned.
Within our school context, the Australian curriculum actually fits perfectly, because we know with all of our children who are moving schools all of the time, the Australian curriculum is helping to address those learning needs for those children. But for us, it's really important that we actually have everyone on the same page. And through our cooperative planning and our co-teaching, the Australian curriculum is flexible enough for us to be able to do that in whatever model we like. The general capabilities, that's where we drive a lot of our learning as well, but in the content areas, it's worked beautifully for us.